Everything in this state needs water. The Great Salt Lake needs water, the birds need water, animals need water, people need water. As we look toward the future, we have a finite resource that we're able to utilize. We have built a system that has a buffer in it. We store it in the reservoirs. We try to keep more than 1 year's worth of water in there at all times. So we have that kind of a buffer. But when we start getting drought years, 2 or 3 or 4 in a row, that buffer basically vanishes. And then we're down to what we see is what we get. And that can be a very scary time. The amount of water that comes to us for storage comes from a very small place, a very small area, high elevation in the mountains. 95% or more of the water we get comes from that area and is stored over a short period of time, typically 6 to 10 weeks in our reservoir system. If it's not there after the runoff season, it's not coming from anywhere else. That's what we have to work with. If we didn't have the reservoirs and the canals and the delivery system that we had, the only thing that would grow here in the Salt Lake Valley would be sagebrush and jackrabbits.
If we were to theoretically take away the mountains out of Utah, we couldn't live as we do right now. We would not have the water supply. We wouldn't have the snow. But fortunately for us, we've got these mountains that cause air masses to lift. And as the water vapor in those air masses condense, it falls out as snow. And then we store that snow in the mountains until we need it in the spring and in the summertime.
The message here is the connection between snowpack at our very high elevations in the mountains is the driver of stream flow that we use. The water that comes out of your tap, the water that you put on your lawn, originated in those high elevations.
The question is it going to come every year? And if it does come every year, will it be the same amounts relatively so we can all have the same amount of water? Now we're going to add more people into the equation. We're going to populate the Salt Lake valleys, the northern valleys, all of Utah with a lot more people that are going to need more water. Do we have enough water coming out of the mountains?
It's critical we monitor that snowpack. We have an idea how much is there so that we can efficiently, effectively manage the water resource that we have. If we don't get it in the mountains, your lawn's going to die, your garden's going to die. The vast majority of all of this stream flow originates in places that we really can't see.
Sometimes there are ways to save this water or conserve this water that we haven't learned yet, and that's what we're about here at the garden. Here in the desert, we actually use about 60% of all of our culinary water outside in the garden. It's the biggest piece of water usage that we have. It's also the most visible.
A conservation garden like this one here at Jordan Valley is phenomenally important because what they're demonstrating is the wise use of water by limiting the types of plants. If you use plants that can survive in the summertime with little or no irrigation, that's less water you consume on your piece of property. And that conservation goes a long way to extending our water supply into the future.
The garden is here to illustrate that conservation works. The amount of water that went into this garden is far less than you would put on a sod field or your grass or on a golf course. And all you have to do is walk around for a short period of time and look at all the pretty flowers and plants and realize there's not much water used in this garden.
If we can maintain our use of water or even draw back on it a little bit, then the cost later will be much less, both for the simple water use and all of the infrastructure we need. I think sometimes we feel that the water all comes in pipes the size of the pipe that runs under the road in front of our house. That's where the water comes from. It's sort of like, where does the egg come from? Yes, it comes from the grocery store, doesn't it? No, there's something more to it than that. And there's something more to the water that comes out your tap than the pipe that's under the asphalt in front of your house. We have to start learning now how to best use every drop of water that's available to come to us. This will come home to roost at some point. We simply don't have the ability to make more water.
We only have X amount of water. And if you double the amount of people that are using that amount of water, everybody has to use less. And looking for ways to use less is the way we extend that water supply into the future.
When the public comes to our garden and sees these beautiful trees and lush grasses, ornamental and landscape, they see shrubs, ground covers, fruits and vegetables, they wonder where are the plants that are going to save them water. They're standing in the middle of the plants that are going to save them water. This is a water-efficient garden. It is set up to demonstrate to folks that it can look as lush as they want and still be very, very conservative in the water use. Many of our local landscapes are done around the lawn. You have vast expanses of grass, and grass is not a villain. It really does not waste water. Never have I seen lawn crawl over and turn the sprinklers on. Our lawn, our usually bluegrass lawn, can get by on nearly 50% less water than's given to it, and it will still look nice. You learn a few things here at the garden about mowing longer, watering deep but much less often, and you keep a beautiful lawn.
Outdoor water use is by far the biggest use that we have, and it represents the biggest opportunity for conservation. There's all kinds of things that individuals can do to preserve and conserve our water resources.
You know, when folks come here and see this already designed, laid out, and growing into itself garden, they still have blink, 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 because it doesn't translate to that flat piece of ground they have at their own home. So by tweaking the landscape that you already have, you don't have to do a massive makeover. Now, for those folks who come in with the blank slate, they can do it water conservatively from the beginning. That design element that we can teach them, walk them through this idea, will save them time, money, and exasperation. This is an education center. Our building, our gardens, the tours, the classes are all aimed in the direction of teaching folks. That's what Jordan Valley really wants to do. And that was the purpose and is the purpose of the Conservation Garden. So you come and enjoy the beauty, and we slip education in on the side. This is a place where everything we know about gardens, everything we know about water, from the source to the supply to the use, is covered here in the garden, put together in a way that will teach everyone who walks through here something about conserving water.
We only have one bathtub. We only have a certain amount of water. The more people that you put in, the more uses that you have for this water, the more is being taken out. And at some point in time, we will run out of water. That resource can only support so many people and so many uses. The further we can extend the water that we have, the further we postpone that day of reckoning.
It's up to each person that turns on the faucet or waters the garden to understand that to have water for the future, we must take care of it now.